Stanley presents, oh, hey, that's me, The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones. Excelsior.
Welcome.
It's time for The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones.
Some of the greatest adventures of my life are sitting in this museum.
Big deal.
Pack your bag, grab your passport, and prepare to go globetrotting with Dark Horse Comics' classic four-color adventures of Indiana Jones.
Oh, your teacher.
Part-time.
Mr. Henry Jones, Jr. of Princeton, New Jersey.
I like Indiana.
We're named the dog Indiana.
Now, what shall we talk about?
And welcome, IndyCast listeners and further fans, to the Further Adventures of Indiana Jones. I'm Joe Stuber. He's Keith Voss. Keith, big day today. Very special guest waiting for us in the Raven's Nest. The Raven's Nest, that is the virtual pub. We can all still get together in the Raven's Nest, right? No matter what's going on in the world, we can always hang out together in the Raven's Nest.
Hey, Joe, and hey, Indy fans. Yes, it's always open. The more the merrier, right? I mean, and as we've been talking about the work of our special guest for some time, he's the artist of Dark Horse Comics, Indiana Jones Adventure Volumes 1 and 2, as well as the free Comic Book Day miniseries that we just talked about, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Yearning, and now it's time to talk to the talented man himself, Ethen Beavers.
That is right. We are closing in on the end of the Dark Horse run. Man, it's we've been talking about Dark Horse for a while now.
Crazy.
And when Crystal Skull hit theaters back in 2008, Dark Horse not only produced the movie adaptation and the miniseries Tomb of the Gods, the latter of which we reviewed recently, they produced the comic books that you mentioned, ones that were geared toward younger readers. But look, we older indie fans loved them as well, right?
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt about that. I mean, we love having them as part of our comic book collection. We love having more Indiana Jones stories. Of course, the man who gave life to those scripts is here today with us, ready to chat all things Indy with you guys. In addition to Indy, he's illustrated many other fan favorite characters for a series of beloved children's books. You had a chance to interview him recently. Unfortunately, I was not able to go with you on this adventure at the time. So in our virtual world of Further Adventures, you head in to the VIP table at the Raven's Nest, and I'm going to make sure that we've got plenty of food on hand from our distributors, and of course, I will make sure there's plenty of virtual whiskey on hand as well. I'll be sure to send in some whiskey to you guys.
Oh, that's so nice of you. I appreciate that. You had a chance to sit down with Ethen. With schedule-wise, look, again, inside baseball here, it's schedule-wise, things being what they are. You weren't able to join us on this one, but we were able to talk about that. So I appreciate the virtual whiskey that you're going to send on into us. Without further ado, I am going to go ahead and head into the Raven's Nest to chat with Ethen Beavers. Joining me now at the VIP table is the man who has illustrated legendary characters from the worlds of DC Comics, Star Trek, and Star Wars. He's the artist of Indiana Jones Adventures, Volumes 1 and 2, and he brought to life Indy's adventure to the Temple of Yearning. Time to welcome in Ethen Beavers. Ethen, welcome to the IndyCast and to the Raven's Nest.
Thank you.
It's incredible the amount of franchises you've been able to work with. Were you a fan of those movies that I mentioned? Star Wars, Star Trek, the TV shows, the comic books that you've gotten a chance to work with now. Were you a fan of those growing up?
Absolutely. I think I was probably, more into Star Wars than anything else, but Indiana Jones was big for me. And then Star Trek eventually grew on me once I got old enough to, figure it out. But yeah, I'm a huge sci-fi fan and George Lucas fan.
What was your first exposure to these? Was it like VHS? Did you see them on TV? Did you see any of these in the movie theater? What's your early memories of how you saw these, when you first saw them, your experiences with, let's say, Star Wars and Star Trek and Indiana Jones?
Well, Star Trek I saw at home on TV, and, I didn't really get it. It was just too intellectual for me, because I was, a kid. But Star Wars, I saw that in the theater. Tusken Raiders really kind of screaming kind of left a mark on me. You know, like Darth Vader, you know, choking people out really, you know, affected me. I mean, I thought Luke was pretty darn cool, and you know, I mean, I didn't understand how Bigfoot could be the co-pilot, but I still thought it was cool. You know, I just thought it was freaky, you know, the freaky music in the cantina and all the, you know, crazy aliens. I actually had a music teacher, and I was probably in like 3rd grade or 4th grade or something like that. Anyways, my music teacher, she would lend out LP records, and I just listened to that constantly. So I was like, I mean, I was just into all things Star Wars. I think I was really into like The Hobbit at the time too. So I had a lot of like weird fantasy things going on with, and I was already drawing too. That's another thing. I was drawing at a very young age. I was drawing monsters and dinosaurs. And so all this stuff was, obviously new to the world, new to me, but I was totally into it.
I've talked about that over on Comic Book Central, my other podcast with Alex Ross. We all kind of did that. Many of us kind of did that. We would draw things. I remember drawing comic books, Indiana Jones, Superman, when I was a kid. And when you see the Alex Ross Museum, the traveling display, you see his early comic books and his early drawings. But at some point in life, something else takes over. We stopped. Many of us stopped and moved on. And then you guys kept going and made it art and made it profitable and made everybody buy it. What was it that took you from, hey, I like these cool things and Wookiees and Tusken Raiders and I want to draw stuff too? What made you think, oh, I really want to get serious about this?
Well, as a kid, I was good at it, and I took pleasure in it. The creation of a drawing like a, you know, Godzilla versus tanks or something actually gave me pleasure, like in the actual making of it. And that, I think, is a big thing for artists. If I showed my friends, they all liked it. So that was a good way to get, attention or positive reinforcement. I think that's basically it. Taking pleasure in the drawing itself taking pleasure in anything is a big deal with sticking with anything.
When did you start to learn the craft? How old were you? Was it art classes? Was it in college? When did you really start to go, okay, how do I learn structure? How do I get serious about this? And how do I get disciplined at this?
I think in high school, probably as a senior, I started doing like real figure drawing. Right after high school, I started taking some community college courses, and I took like figure drawing and watercolor painting, and then later on, I took the same sorts of courses at a community college here in California, and mostly the professors were teaching me to be a hippie more than they were teaching me to actually draw and paint. And that was not good. And I kind of gave up on it because of that. The schools are a lot better now. They actually at least seem to be teaching kids how to actually make art the right way, but kind of had to depend on myself, and really, emulate comic book artists and things of that nature to get better. I think intuitively a lot of what passes for like the rules of comic books, a lot of artists, they sort of like absorb that over time. And that's true of me. So I'm mostly self-taught, but, I didn't start as a professional comic book artist until I was 30. So I started pretty late, and I'm kind of behind a lot of the guys that are my age.
What were you doing up until then?
Oh, you name it. I worked in a sign shop. I made commercial signs and installed them. I worked at a filter company. I assembled the filters, and then eventually I was running the production for a filter company, and that was about the time I decided I better give art a real shot and really go for it, or I'd probably get too old. It would pass me by. And so I put my portfolio together and I took it to San Diego Comic-Con, and it was like 2001 or so. And I showed my samples around, and I got work right away. I got some work in independent comics, working on an image book called Noble Causes, and also I did another book there with Mike Oman called Six, and those were my first professional credits.
So what was it about that time period, maybe a decade-ish or something like that, where I'm guessing you had a portfolio, so you were drawing a bunch of things, but what was it about that era that made you think you couldn't do it or that you didn't pursue it?
I thought when I was in my, when I was in my 20s, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I served a mission, and that took 2 years out of my life. When I got back, I remember sending some samples around, but they just weren't good enough. And I guess I took that pretty hard. And then I got married. That kind of took up some time. And then I thought college was the direction for me. And so I was doing that. And then that didn't seem to be really panning out the way that I thought it would. And so then I just got a real 9-to-5. And I wasn't doing that a couple of years before I had figured out, I really need to, give art a shot before I give up on it completely.
But were you drawing all these characters? Were you drawing like Star Wars and like just in that time? Were those the characters that you were kind of gravitating towards? Superheroes.
Superheroes. Yes.
Yeah.
I discovered Bruce Timm's work when Mad Love came out, and that just flipped my brain around completely.
Okay, you may have just tapped into something there, because that's what I was curious about, because that's a very distinctive style. Anybody that has seen your work, hopefully everybody listening to this podcast has seen all the Indiana Jones stuff. It's a very retro kind of animated kind of, are those fair description? Sure. Okay. Had that always been there? Had you always gravitated toward that? Or did seeing Mad Love take you in a new direction?
It did take me in a new direction, but the artists that I was really kind of into at the time, like Paul Smith on X-Men, he kind of came from animation, and his stuff was very clean. And then Steve Rude was a favorite of mine, and his stuff was very, very, very clean. Obviously, the animation, I was always into cartoons. That's another thing. I always loved, like the Lord of the Rings cartoon, as crazy as it was. I loved
Bakshi,
it. Yeah. So, I mean, I probably just like too many things, but there was something about Bruce Timm stuff that just totally fascinated me. And, when I took my samples to San Diego Comic-Con, I took 2 sets. I stopped working at the filter company, and I concocted 2 sets of samples. One was kind of a, more realistic, naturalistic kind of look, and one was the cartoony, animated look. And the animated
Can I lay odds as to which one? Can I lay odds as to which one worked out?
Yeah, that's the one that worked out.
I'm going all in on cartoony here, right?
Yeah. It wasn't like a major decision that I made. I mean, like I still like drawing a naturalistic, realistic drawing every now and again, and I really enjoy drawing the expressionistic, sort of abstract cartoon stuff as well.
So that was really a watershed moment for you, though, of just defining your style at that point, though, right? You knew that, like, the light bulb went off.
Yeah, I mean, seeing Mad Love was really just transformative moment for me.
Great book.
I loved it. I loved it. I couldn't get enough of it.
And you have taken
another
it.
thing too
that
came out right about that time with Samurai Jack, which was a huge influence on me as well. Samurai Jack really just blew my mind away as well.
But to be able to then work on it, that's got to be crazy for you, for somebody that's a fan of something that goes, "Oh, I really enjoy this as a fan." and then to be part of what develops that world. That's got to be mind-blowing.
It is. I remember being on the phone with a client at the filter company, and I was doodling a Samurai Jack drawing, and I just thought, hey, that kind of looks pretty good. And that's one of the reasons why I thought maybe I should just, go after the art thing and kind of quit this filter company thing. And it wasn't really, I hadn't been a professional maybe 3-4 years before I was drawing Samurai Jack comics at DC. So I've already surpassed all of my expectations. I probably surpassed all of them probably like 10 years ago.
But that's a good lesson for anybody, though, is that you never stopped believing in yourself.
Yeah, I never. I mean, I certainly had trepidations, but
we all have doubts.
Yeah,
we all have doubts.
Yeah, give it a shot.
Yeah.
See what happens. And it wasn't. I feel stupid because as it worked out, it wasn't nearly as difficult as I thought it would be. It wasn't even as difficult as some professionals told me it would be, which is another thing that's weird.
Well, I guess that's another lesson too, is that sometimes we get in our own way.
Oh, I mean, I'm the world heavyweight champion of that.
You may be in good company with this audience too. We all experience that. We all experience that. I think we just all kind of look at that. But and we'll talk a little bit about some of your children's books too, because just even some of the lessons that come out in the children's books, I really like those too. Before we get into Lucasfilm and stuff, I want to talk about your experience. We talked about animation. You do have a little bit of experience in animation with Justice League Unlimited, right?
Yeah, I worked on one episode, so I have a credit, and I thought at the time that my career was going to go that way, but it just didn't. It was the last season of Justice League Unlimited, and they needed help, and they reached out to me, and I was blown away.
You did the storyboards, right?
But I did storyboards for an episode. I think it was called Patriot Act.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure that's the one.
Yep.
And I just I was over the moon about it, and it's still a wonderful thing to be able to tell people, but for whatever reason, I wound up remaining mostly in comics until eventually I switched over, and now I'm mostly in children's books.
Well, the reason I ask about that is because when you see these things laid out, because everybody on this podcast always talks about, okay, yeah, Indy 5 is awesome. We have no idea where that's going to go. But we've always, for years, been wanting an Indiana Jones animated series. And when you look at your work, it lays out perfectly as storyboard. So it just naturally leads into the question, are you interested in more animation? Have you had discussions? What do you think about a possible Indiana Jones animated series? Because your work in Indiana Jones Adventures and Temple Yearning certainly goes right into that mold.
I think it would be wonderful, but I mean, there's really no rhyme or reason to why these things happen or don't happen. I mean, I can't make any sense of it. I don't know anyone who does make sense of it. I'll tell you a crazy story. I was actually speaking to Joss Whedon at Comic-Con, and because I had worked on an issue of Buffy.
Okay.
And I just saw him walking around, and I just went up to him and was like, yeah, I worked on Buffy at Dark Horse for one episode, and it was this comic, this one issue in which Buffy has a dream, and in the dream she's in an animated cartoon. And an artist named Eric White and another used to work on like Batman Adventures, and then another artist named Adam Van Wyck, who's a phenomenal animation story artist, worked on that book with me. Anyways, I was talking to Mr. Wheaton about it, and I was saying, these two animation guys have done all this work, and they've done the work for a proposed animated Buffy cartoon. They've done designs, they've done backgrounds, they've done story stuff as far as I could tell, and they submitted it, and the studio didn't want to make it. And so my question to Mr. Wheaton was, what the hell? You've already got a fan base. Mm-hmm. You don't have to invent one. Mm-hmm. You've already got parents who will sit down with their kids and watch the cartoon. I don't get it. Can you explain it to me? And he just said no. Mm. Nobody can. And so there's no rhyme, there's no reason, there's no explanation. There just isn't.
But
stuff gets made.
I get it, and there's all that, like, so much work goes in, because we as fans we go, we love it, do it, and people that have to put these together go, yeah, it's not really that easy. But the other reason I asked too is that Disney now owns Indiana Jones. And Disney likes to do a lot of animation. So we're always kind of curious that as we see these puzzle pieces seemingly start to fit together, we kind of wonder when we see a talent like yours, does your agent or publicist, whoever, make calls? Do you tap people on the shoulder at Comic Cons? Do you know?
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
have any of those things. I don't have an agent. I don't
Okay.
have a publicist. And nobody's been tapping me on the shoulder. But
All right.
I can't tell you this, like, it's way more likely that these things will happen now, simply because of Netflix and Disney and
Right.
Streaming.
Well, the
wars
Disney
and so on and
streaming,
so
yeah,
forth.
they got the Disney streaming services. Would be perfect for Indiana Jones adventures on there. We'll talk a little bit more. Let's talk about Lucasfilm. How and when did you become involved with Lucasfilm and with Dark Horse?
Let's see, the Clone Wars, the original Genndy Tartakovsky 2D Clone Wars came out. I loved it, and so I was at like WonderCon in San Francisco. This is like 2004, 5 or something like that. And I went to the Dark Horse booth and I found an editor and I said, look, I've worked on a few things at DC and I love the Clone Wars, and I think I'd done some Samurai Jack stuff. I might have shown them that. And anyhow, I said I'd love to do some Clone Wars stuff, and they said sure. And so I think I did 3 stories there for them and 3 different books. And I loved it. It was like, again, it was one of those dream comes true. It's like, hey, can I draw your Star Wars comic? Sure, come on, we'll even pay you.
It's easy,
And,
right?
it's like, I just remember, I literally remember sitting with my drawing board round about that time thinking, I really just my life was really good. I had a few steaks in the freezer, I had a couple bucks in the bank, and there I was drawing Star Wars and Samurai Jack, and then eventually after that the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull came out, and I got just before that came out I got offered my first indie book, the Adventures book, and then soon thereafter, but the next year, I think, or next season, I got the volume 2.
Yeah. So so you were firmly in that sort of Lucasfilm animated, cartoony kind of style looking already. So did they just kind of go, oh, he's already doing this, let's offer him indie?
I think that kind of is what happens.
Okay.
You do something and then they think, well, let's we have this other thing going. I did have to do a tryout for indie, so I had to do a few Indiana Jones drawings to give them an idea of how I saw it, and that stuff has to go through an editorial process at Dark Horse, and then you have to go through another one at LucasArts.
How did you see
there
it?
are a lot of.
How did you see
what?
it? How did you see Indy? What was that process like?
I'll tell
Okay,
you
I got to
exactly
pitch
how I
my.
saw it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
How I saw it was I watched Raiders again, and when I watched Raiders, I took away just a few things, and one thing I took away was the silhouettes. Indy gets shot in silhouette a lot. And then the other thing I took away was that there's just a lot of cast shadows. And that's one of the ways they tell the story is like, they show action in shadows against a wall. Indy's the big giant shadow framing Marion when he sees her for the first time in the movie. Those sorts of things. And then the third one actually was the hat. I sat down to draw the hat and I realized I couldn't fake it, or it didn't look right.
You took me right into it. I'm looking at my questions here. Every artist we always ask, how did you feel about the fedora? Because many of them said they hated it and they would lose it as fast as they could.
Oh no, I loved it.
Got it.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it, and I concentrated very hard on getting the hat right. And And I felt that my drawings were successful. Really, I mean, 75% of it had to do whether or not the hat looked right. So those were the three things. Believe it or not, when the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull came out, I saw a little featurette that Spielberg did, and he said when he was getting ready to shoot the movie, he went back and watched the other ones, and he literally took away those same things. He said, wow. Silhouettes cast shadows in the hat. And I flipped. I was like, holy crap, I might actually know what I'm doing.
Well, and you see that play out in the books, because I, as you're talking, I'm flipping through them, and I'm seeing the hat, I'm seeing the shadows, I'm seeing all these things, and it's so obvious that those were the things that inspired you. Were there any other inspirations that you had for your depiction of Indiana Jones in these comic book tales?
Yeah, one of the inspirations that came was Humphrey Bogart. Okay. I had some reference books of old films, and I was kind of go through them, gangster films and stuff. And I had seen Casablanca before, and the Maltese Falcon, and I realized there's probably an awful lot of Humphrey Bogart in Indiana. Particularly at the beginning of the Temple of Doom. He wears the white dinner jacket with the black tie, and that's totally a Humphrey Bogart type look. So I started looking at that, and that was a sort of a key into how to treat the character.
That's those are pretty good inspirations, some pretty good classic flicks to get some inspiration from, and it really goes into that sort of noir aspect too, when you think about like the Maltese Falcon and stuff like that, and then those shadows on the walls of things,
Exactly. If you watch the first, really Raiders, you'll realize like that it's an old-fashioned film in the way that it's shot. Yeah. It's a very old-fashioned film, and I saw that after I started thinking about Humphrey Bogart.
What was your working relationship like with the writers, Phil Gillott and Mark Evanier?
It was good. Mark Evanier said that he enjoyed what I did, and I can't remember the previous writer's name, but I also met him at one point, and he was complimentary. In terms of like, day-to-day or stuff like that, that's not how it works. I just get the script, and then I do my thing, and then the editor will, correct me or support me, and then, sometimes, rarely, you'll get changes after you submit pencils. That's one of the things you have to do when you're working on something like Indiana. You have to submit your pencil work, and then that'll go through the editorial at Dark Horse, and then the editorial at LucasArts, and then comes back to with notes if you have changes.
What were the notes or changes? Because that I know we talked to so many of the Marvel folks that had issues with Lucasfilm, obviously different eras that you're talking about too. But was there any note that came back that just drove you nuts?
Not on those ones. No, I never got a lot of feedback that was, any feedback really at all. And I don't remember anything really being negative. They might have had me like change a pose or a hand or a leg or something like that.
Okay. But nothing like too violent or like this is an all ages adventure. We can't show that or something like, okay.
No, I never did anything like it. I can tell you that I was really, I was really focused on making sure the stuff that I drew existed in the time that the stories were set in. For instance, I was asked to draw an army jeep for the vehicle that Indy drives around in Africa, and they didn't exist in the 30s. So I switched it out for like a Mercedes, early Mercedes truck flatbed.
Okay, so you did your research. You definitely went in and did your research.
As much as I could, yeah. Aircraft, I didn't want to draw an airplane that didn't exist in the, the early 30s, that sort of thing.
Well, people would probably call you, the readers would probably call you out on it at some point.
Yeah, somebody somewhere like, that's just wrong.
Yeah. You talk about the era, too, so you kind of walked me into that one, too. I love that at least the Adventures volumes 1 and 2 are set pre-Temple of Doom, because you get to work with that mercenary Indy That the sort of big pre-Raiders, like, he learns a lot of stuff in Temple of Doom and Raiders, but you get to deal with that. You really bring him to life on I think it's page 4, as he's ready to go out into the blizzard. He's going out without the guide. The guides, they can't go, and he's got to go into the dig site to try to beat Forrestal there. Just talk a little bit about that, of getting to draw that Indy that's a little bit different than we see pre Temple of Doom and Raiders.
I think it's the key is like I don't want to be too. I don't want to say the wrong thing, but it's kind of Han Solo.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of got a lot more of that, scoundrel in him,
mm-hmm.
and so that kind of was one of the keys that I used to try to tap into who he was at that time.
What were some of your favorite moments to draw with Indiana Jones Adventures? I think just some of the iconic things too: the map, the plane, the
punching
red line.
Nazis, man, punching Nazis, love it.
The classics, right?
Weird?
You can't beat the classics.
It's like they're like Doritos, like you can chew them up and they'll just make more.
You can't punch enough awesome. Nazis. That's right. Yeah, right.
You can't shoot them. You can't kill them. It's like they did the same thing with Hellboy. Nobody cares how many Nazis you punch, kill, destroy, whatever, blow up. Nobody cares. They're just like, yeah, the more the better.
It's the all-purpose.
I'll tell you what. Once I was asked what the most difficult thing to draw about Indy was, and it's the swastika. I did not enjoy drawing that symbol. It just bothered the hell out of me. You can't avoid it because it's key to the whole Indiana mythos. But
mm-hmm.
I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy drawing swastikas.
We saw that on the toy line that came out too. They had like German Soldier, and you couldn't put any of that obviously on the toy line.
Yeah,
you're selling stuff to kids, and this isn't all. Yeah, and it's just interesting how that plays out in different areas too. Well, you're talking about that. I'm looking as you're talking about that. He's punching the Nazis, but it's through that whole Marrakesh chase scene with the horse. Comic. It's easy for an action scene in a movie because you get to see that play out in real time. What are the challenges of? And you did it. The action scene jumps right off the pages. But what were the challenges for you in developing Indiana Jones chase and action scenes in a comic book?
I'm not real keen on. I can't draw a horse from memory, so I had to track down a bunch of reference for
mm-hmm.
African Mediterranean type architecture and like the marketplace and so forth. I don't want to copy stuff that I'd seen in the movie, so I had to find other sources. The horse, of course, it was important to get right. It's difficult to find good photography of let's say how a German Luger looks, or handguns and things like that are specific to that era. But the actual the action wasn't as difficult to draw as, let's say, coming up with a good disguise for Indiana. I don't know if you noticed, but his disguise is based on a character from Lawrence of Arabia, Omar Sharif from Lawrence of Arabia, from the David Lean movie.
Okay. So we see where all those inspirations come in. Looking at Volume 2, definitely inspiration from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Indy's office, you nailed that.
Yeah.
Down to the fan, and even the tie and the jumping out the windows and the whips. Obviously somebody had watched Last Crusade before they did that one.
Yeah, I like that. I like the Indiana with the tie. I was actually talking to my little brother about that. And my little brother, I was saying, there's just something about that tie. I like it. And my little brother was telling me, he's like, well, you know why he wears that in the Last Crusade? And I'm like, no. He's like, because he's going to see his dad.
Yes.
When he shows up to see his dad, he wears a tie because he doesn't, he's afraid his dad's going to tell him he looks slouchy or something.
Right.
And I'm like, you know what, you could be right.
Yeah. No, it's very cool because we definitely get a Raiders vibe in Volume 1. We definitely get a Last Crusade vibe in Volume 2. And it's just so cool that you bring those eras in, even in the Indiana Jones era that you're doing. It's like Indy's greatest hits that we've got in these things. It's amazing. In the time we have left, I want to ask you too about the free comic book day, Temple of Yearning, that 6-pager. What was your experience like on that? Because you got a lot of story in 6 pages.
Well, that actually was fun because I have I got to draw the story on full-size comic book art. The digest size, you draw it smaller. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like half size or pretty close to it. And for free comic book day, because it was going to be printed in a normal size comic, I got to draw full size. And in that one, I kind of, because it was such a short story and because it was probably going to be my last, I made a really hardcore effort to try to stuff as much Indiana jungle stuff in there as I possibly could. That's why I put the snake in page 1. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. I remember showing the work to Mark Evanier, and he immediately went to the Punch panel that I drew and was saying how much he liked it. And I didn't mention it at the time, but all I could think of was like, that's probably the Jack Kirby lover in him. Stylistically, it's not very similar, but in terms of its like emotional impact or like, intellectual impact, it's basically a Jack Kirby drawing.
Yeah, and there's so much that happens in it too, because the glasses go flying, the gun goes flying, you got the onomatopoeia in there. And then as one of our IndyCasters referenced too, you got the gloves. You got like the Raiders gloves. That you put on that too. You'll be happy to hear that my podcasting partner Keith Voss years ago adapted this into a 15-minute radio play. So this little 6-page adventure, I'll send you the link. But it exists as a radio drama, complete with full backstory and special effects and sound effects and things like that. So yeah, we'll send that to you. Okay, your website, ethenbeavers.com, ETHEN Beavers.com, has a section for your Indiana Jones artwork. So if people haven't had a chance to check it out, they're going to want to check that out. Obviously, Star Wars and everything else is on there too, but we're talking Indy. I want to ask you about a few pieces on that section that we haven't seen before. This was kind of mind-blowing to me. First of all, can we talk about this beautiful action piece that features Indiana Jones, Doc Savage, the Rocketeer? I don't recall this film. I don't recall this story from somewhere. What is this?
Yeah, that came directly from my brain. The guy that used to own the local comic shop with his family, his brother is a big Doc Savage fan, and he asked me if I wanted to do a commission, and I said yeah. And I think I had been drawing the indie comics at the time. And so I kind of had my creative juices flowing, and I was saying, I think I said to him, yeah, it would be great if we could do like a World War II war scene with like Doc Savage, and then maybe Indiana Jones and the Rocketeer. And I actually wanted to have get the Shadow in there, but there wasn't enough room.
Oh, yeah, you filled every corner of this piece.
So it's set in Egypt, and you've got the World War II bombers there and some burning tanks and barbed wire, and it's got the Nazi zombie SS She-Wolf that I tandem that I thought up. The one thing I don't know if people noticed, the Rocketeer's girlfriend Betty is on the back of Indy's horse, so he's stealing his girl.
That's what I wanted. Okay, I wasn't sure. Yeah. That's perfect.
So
I wasn't sure if that was Marion or
idol.
Okay. Oh wow. Okay, that just tells a story within the story, too. Yeah. Oh, this is just so perfect. So can you, like, for something like that? That was a commission for somebody specifically, but you couldn't do that could you do that as a print, or because you did that as a commission specifically for somebody, it's just kind of there, or could you do a variation of it? Like people could buy it, because I see some prints on your website for like $25. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. No, that's a print that I could get, that I could make up if I really, really wanted to. There's kind of like that might sell, prints are kind of a difficult, tricky market, but there's sort of the logic behind it is maybe somebody wouldn't buy a Rocketeer print, maybe somebody wouldn't buy a Doc Savage print, but they people who like that sort of thing probably would buy a Doc Savage Rocketeer Indiana Jones print.
I'm going to guess everybody listening to this podcast would want a Rocketeer, Doc Savage, Indiana Jones taking Rocketeer's girlfriend, zombie Nazi, she-wolf print. I think I'm going to guess. I'm just going to go out on a limb here.
Okay.
That's pretty amazing. I think I want one of these hanging on my wall. That's for sure. Let's talk about a couple of these other ones here too. A lot of the Dark Horse Comics stuff is on there that you did, but there's also this one called Indiana Jones and the Vial of Armageddon, and we see more zombie Nazis, I think.
I think that's what the name of the story is. I don't know what the story is. I mean, just the idea itself, the
elevator pitch is...
Exactly. The Vial of Armageddon, I think that's the reference to what Revelations or something like that.
Okay.
And I don't know how you get a Nazi zombie. I don't know how you make one of those. And, I don't know any of that. It just sounded okay, like Indy getting chased by a Nazi zombie officer or whatever the hell that guy is. That just sounded fun.
I like your Indy and zombies better than Army of the Dead novel. Keith and I have talked about that on the show before, but I think I like your version of zombies and Indiana Jones a little better. Was this anything? Like, was this just you being inspired one day, or like had you talked to Dark Horse at all? Like, could this have... Okay, so this wasn't like a specific thing. This was just you having fun.
Yeah, this was me in the middle of... I think what I did was I probably saw some Nazi thing, some Nazi art that I was looking through, and then I got the idea. I was asked to do that commission, and as I was drawing the commission, that's usually what happens with a lot of artists is you're in the process of drawing the thing, and your mind will gnaw on the subject as you ink it, as you execute the drawing, and then that the stories can kind of come from there. There's an artist named Frank Robbins. He said, anybody who can create images can create stories. And I think that's what he meant, is that like what we were talking about before, as soon as Betty gets on the back of the horse, as soon as you decide that, and then you have the Rocketeer in the air, well, then all of a sudden the story becomes, well, how is he rescuing her, or is he stealing her, or is he stealing her as he rescues her?
Yeah.
And that's what I decided he was doing.
Saving her somehow from the Rocketeer.
Yeah. He's stealing his girl. I mean, he's not. Yeah, he's rescuing her. That's his part of this team up.
Yeah.
But really, he's stealing her. But as far as he's concerned, by the end of this story, she's gonna dig him a hell of a lot more than he did.
I just love how the story just comes alive from one picture. Yeah. And that's the coolest thing, too, is when you see this Vial of Armageddon thing, it reminds me of the John Byrne piece when he was doing Further Adventures. He had, the Sentinel. He just did this one picture, this one splash page. And it was for a proposed Indiana Jones adventure, but it never came to be. He quit the book. And it's when I see this, I'm almost like, oh, this is another one of those really cool Indiana adventures that can never be, but maybe we'll see. I want to ask you about another one that's on here, Indiana Jones and Short Round running from the boulder. It looks like it's from the Raiders Temple, but again, just you goofing around having fun.
Well, that was a commission too. There was a fellow who asked, it's really a weird story. This fellow asked me, he worked at a comic book store, in the Heartland, and he got a hold of me around that time and asked me to do that commission, and I did the commission, and then I didn't hear from him, and then I did hear from him, and he said part of the payment, and then he disappeared, so I got stiffed on that one.
Okay, but he didn't get the artwork.
He did, yeah.
Oh, he did get the artwork. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So now do you get payment before you send the artwork out? Have you switched to? Okay, good. Okay, so lesson learned. You get part of the artwork. If we ever see this thing popping up somewhere, we know that the guy owes you half the money. But what's cool about this is, so I can go into here, right, and I can hit contact, and I can go, hi, Mr. Beavers. I would like to see Indiana Jones and zombie Nazis too, and then I could pay for it, and you'd do something, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Especially in these times, right? You're just like,
Oh yeah,
you got some time on your hands. You're ready to do some Indiana Jones commission artwork, right?
Yeah. In fact, on my Instagram, I was probably a month and a half ago. I opened up for commissions, and that has essentially run its course. So I have a couple left on the docket, but
okay,
I have time and the wherewithal to get some rockin' Indiana Jones commissions if somebody wants them.
Oh, that'd be great. So we want to get the word out about that. And I'm thinking if you can turn that into a print, the Vial of Armageddon, I might want to have to get one of those for my wall. So that might be pretty cool too. So there we have that. And those are amazing pieces of artwork out there. And so on that page also, we want to mention that there's a lot of the Indiana Jones Adventures volumes. Well, there's Temple of Yearning out there. There's Volume 1 artwork out there. And Volume 2 covers. But can they get, do you still have stuff around your lair, your temple there that's like original stuff that people could buy from the Dark Horse books? Yeah,
I have three. My three indie projects are complete. I haven't sold any of the original artwork, so if anybody's interested in them, they could pick those up. The Volume 1 I have a complete. Volume 2, and then I have the I think it's like a 6-page story for Free Comic Book Day that I did.
Yeah, the Temple of Yearning. So that's all.
Exactly.
You have all that original artwork because that all comes back to you.
Yeah,
and then you have it there. So those are one of a kind.
You have to offer it to Mr. Lucas. That's part of the deal. Is when you sign up to do these books, Star Wars or Indy or so forth. At the time, you were under contract to offer it to Mr. Lucas at any given price, and then you have to agree not to sell it above that price on the open market.
Okay.
If Mr. Lucas refuses, and he refused.
So he didn't want the Dark Horse stuff, so you got all of that original artwork back. Those are all one-of-a-kind pieces then, right? They're not prints. These are the original, and then you sign them so people can actually own not only the book that they, from Dark Horse, but they can own the original artwork. They
can own some of it, yeah, if they so choose.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, there we have that. So, EthenBeavers.com, and then the Indiana Jones page, you go on there when you're on the website. That's amazing. Who knows what the future holds? Disney's got this. Disney's got Marvel. Disney's got Lucasfilm. They've got everything. If they came to you today and said, we'd like to do, we've got Indy 5 coming out, whenever that comes out. We're going to do a new comic book, a Marvel comic book series. We'd like you to work on it. What would you want to see in the comic book series?
I would want to see probably more Marion. I would probably want to see more of that. I mean, I don't know if you can, because you kind of, oh my gosh, it's like, I think I'd probably want to see ninjas. I somehow in my mind, there's ninjas out there somewhere that he needs to have to deal with.
Yeah.
I never was very keen with Short Round, although, some people really like that character, and that probably would be a good way to go in terms of children's comics or even animated thing, but that never really did it for me. I can tell you, I would love to see, Indy do some, Houdini type stuff. A lot of some research that I did in terms of stuff that I wanted to draw for Indy involved daredevils on standing on the wing of a biplane while flying through the air. That to me was there's a photograph that I have in my swipe photograph file of a guy on top of a Model T jumping onto the wing of a moving plane, and I'm just that's just an Indiana Jones scene right there.
Okay.
If you added ninjas to that scene somehow, it would be perfect. You see what I mean?
Ninjas on the other side of the plane. Well, you might want to go back and take a look at some of the Marvel, because he does wing walk a little bit. You do get a little bit of that. We've got some of those covers out there, but they got a few different things out there, but no ninja. I cannot recall ninjas at all. So Ninjas on a plane with Indy?
Yeah.
Instead of snakes on a plane, he doesn't like snakes on a plane. Yeah.
I don't know.
No snakes on a plane, but we'll get ninjas on a plane. That'd be very cool.
Sure.
Hey, the things you're working on now, you got these children's books. The website is ethenbeavers.com, so people can check that out.
Yeah.
But what I love about these, first of all, the little golden books, I just love that they're still around. I grew up on these things. I love that they're still around. You get to do a lot of like DC Comics and things like that, like introducing characters, right?
Yeah.
To a whole new generation.
I got to do an introduction to Batman, Superman, and Aquaman. Those are really wonderful little projects. I actually had never done anything like that when they offered me the first one, and I was really nervous about trying it. The money was too good to say no, and I really didn't know what I was doing when it first started. When I first started it, kind of a weird thing happened. I got much better at accomplishing the style that I was trying to achieve as the project went on. And when I got to the end, I actually had to go backwards through the project to fix each painting so that it looked more like the style that I got that I had achieved when I reached the end. So the first painting that I did actually had to be changed a lot, and the second to the first a little bit less, and so forth, all the way up to the end. So I almost had to paint the thing twice.
Oh, wow.
But in doing so, I taught myself how to do it, and the publisher was very happy with it, and the second one wasn't nearly, and I've actually gotten a lot better at that particular style as I've done them. I think like the last one that I did was Aquaman. I did one, The Flash, and then I did Aquaman. And one of my editors was saying that he was just over the moon with what I had done on Aquaman, and I was pretty proud of that.
They're beautiful. They're stunning. And one of the things I don't know if it's a little golden book or if it's just its standalone children book, but the Batman one, Be Brave Like Batman. What I love about this is it's not only just introducing a child to a cartoon character, a comic book character, but you're helping teach him a lesson. It's like, hey, Batman was afraid when he was a kid too. You don't have to be afraid of the dark. You can stay calm. You can breathe. And it's giving like these little lessons. Just talk a little bit about that too, of just even being able to help kids over fears through your art.
I just think that, the heroes like Batman and Superman, et cetera, they're, depending on how they're handled, they're perfect for just about any age. And so when done correctly, they're perfect for little children. And they are a great vehicle to help kids identify problems and overcome them. So I'm 100% not just cool, but I love them for that. I just love little golden books. I love I did a book called Brave Like Batman, and then I did another one. What is it? Bedtime for Batman.
Mm-hmm.
And both of those books were popular, and both of them kind of dealt with that same sort of thing. And parents love. Parents at conventions and things like that. That's one of the children's books that people bring to me that they had already bought but want me to sign.
Well, it's always tough to find kids stuff with Batman because it's always usually so violent. But here's one that's like teaching them how, right? And then you're using the Star Trek crew to teach them their alphabet too. So that's pretty.
Yeah.
I think B is for Borg and things like that too.
Yeah.
No, they're amazing things. Do you have kids?
No, I actually don't.
That's amazing because you get to be like everybody's dad too. Like you get to be like dad to the world with like helping kids go to bed and stuff like that and not be afraid. So it's pretty cool that you could channel that too.
It's too bad. I think I would have been a great dad. It's just a drag that it didn't work out for me. I would have loved to have had kids. It just didn't work out for me. But it is nice to be able to be, comic book dad or like,
Your dad to the
cool
world.
uncle.
Yeah. You're cool uncle. That's right. You're helping kids get over their fears. You are the cool uncle. So, my goodness, Ethen, I'll tell you what, with these adventures, you've given us Indiana Jones fans something completely unique. We love them. We've seen a lot of Indiana Jones art over the years, but these tales are treasures to behold. They belong in a museum, right? We should. They should go in a museum.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
Or at least on our bookcases.
Let's do it. Make it happen, man.
Hey, thanks so much. Well, hopefully more. Hopefully Disney wakes up here and says, "Hey, Ethen, go to work and give us some more." So, and you will let us know via your website and your social media, right? If that happens.
Of course.
Okay, well, you're out there. So thank you so much for helping to bring our favorite adventure to life to readers of all ages. That's pretty cool. And thank you so much for joining me on the IndyCast.
My pleasure, Joe. Thank you.
Oh, that was a fun conversation. These are fun adventures. I love the fact that we got to go back and revisit these books again from Dark Horse Comics. I really enjoy it. Man, it just really makes me long for an Indiana Jones animated series.
I know. And wouldn't Ethen Beavers just be perfect for that? I mean, he knows how to draw Indy, man. He's a talented guy. Glad we were able to get him into the Raven's Nest, and learned a lot.
Yeah, we talked about the Justice League episode he worked on, the storyboards for that. That would tie in so perfectly with this. And again, I just love all these inspirations that he brings into these books. We talk about how Volume 1 is very Raiders inspired. We talk about, we're going to be talking about Volume 2 on the next episode.
Last Crusade.
Last Crusade. He talked about the tie. He loved it.
Yeah, that was so cool.
And the hat, the fedora, the shadows, all these things, so basically you can kind of go back in and play these things out. As you're looking through the books now, you've heard Ethen talk about his inspirations for these things. It really helps bring these comic book tales to life too. EthenBeavers.com, we want to mention that again, the website, and EthenBeavers.com/Indiana-Jones or -Jones. You check out his Indiana Jones artwork there. So much cool stuff. He really has tapped into this character. So hopefully more indie adventures with Ethen in the future. We'll see that, hey, come on, Disney, let's get to work.
Some never before seen stuff on there too with Indiana Jones, guys. So definitely be sure you go and check that out. And we'd love to hear your thoughts on this interview on Ethen Beavers' Indiana Jones Adventures. Why don't you go ahead and drop us a line, thefurtheradventures@gmail.com. Send us a review or record an MP3. Be sure to check us out on Facebook as well at The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones. We'll also be putting some of that Ethen Beaver artwork up there for you guys to check out as well.
Oh yeah, and go buy his children's books, man. They are so good. They are just order them, get them in. The artwork is amazing. You can even teach your kids some stuff. Not only just teach them about superheroes and Star Wars and Star Trek and all these things, but they'll learn something in the process. So go buy his stuff.
Okay, that's it for the day then.
All right, Further fans, that is all the time we have for today. Our thanks to Ethen Beavers for joining us today to talk about Indiana Jones Adventures. And Keith, that is right where we are going to pick things up next time.
That's right, Joe. Our official IndyCast review of Indiana Jones Adventures Volume 2 is going to be headed your way. We've got some of your comments as well, and that is what you can expect the next time we get together on The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones.